Hi, my name's John. I work on my Mercedes 190e project where I've fitted it with an om606 turbodiesel engine and a BMW 8-speed automatic gearbox in the hopes of running it kind of like a sequential. The only issue is I now need to wire this up and then set it up on a computer, and I don't even own a computer, so that should tell you that the learning curve is going to be pretty steep. Well, we need to come up with a game plan here, and I think I know what I'm going to do. So looking at this engine bay, it's definitely pretty rough, and it would probably seem like it would be logical, now that we know that the engine fits, to take the engine out, paint the engine bay, and then put the engine back in for good. But there's an issue with that, because what I want to do is turn this car into an Evo 1 replica, and those have the wider wheel arches, okay? And as far as I'm aware, they also have a slightly different inner wheel arch tub, and that's for clearance for the wheels. So basically, this might need modified, and that's going to need done before the engine bay is painted. And so to be able to do that, what I need to do is to fit the suspension, fit the wheels, fit the wheel arches, make sure everything steers correctly, and only then would I be able to paint the engine bay. So what I've decided to do is to get the engine running like this, check that the gearbox works, make sure everything is basically running and driving, and then I'll fit my suspension, fit my wheels, fit my wheel arches, and at that point, then I'll take the car apart and paint the engine bay. So the first thing I want to do is to try and fit a radiator. Well, now that I know a bit more about these, I'll try and explain why I had relatively little difficulty in fitting this engine in terms of clearance between the fan and the radiator, whenever so many people say it's a big issue trying to fit one of these engines into one of these chassis. So this car originally started out as a 2.6 petrol car, and it has the removable slam panel, and as far as I was aware, that was so that you can remove this panel and get the bigger engine in and out. Now, the only other car that came with the removable panel is a 2.5 turbo diesel 5-cylinder, which we actually didn't get in the UK. Even the normally aspirated 5-cylinder, it has a welded in panel. But there is actually another difference between the cars with welded in panels and the removable ones. So the cars with the welded in ones, the engines are shorter, and it has a cutout here, right? And the radiator actually sits behind the slam panel, and so that's the difference. Here, the radiator sits below the slam panel, so it makes it easier to fit this engine. Right, so first thing to note, this radiator is out of a car where it fits behind the slam panel, and this obviously fits below the slam panel. And so you can see it's ever so slightly taller. It's probably about 10-15 mil. So what I'm probably going to have to do is lower this radiator support down slightly, but it's not too far, so I should be able to get away with it. Another thing is that this radiator here has got fittings here for the coolant lines of the gearbox. This does not, because this is designed for a manual car, and the reason why I chose this is because I'm going to run an external cooler for the gearbox. It is also 40 mil wide, and this is 32 mil wide. This is probably about 25 mil wider in terms of core, so it is probably about a third bigger than this one. One thing that I do particularly like about it is that if you look at this fitting here, this is right at the top of the radiator here, whereas this one here is probably down about 15 mil from the top. And so what that's going to do is give me more clearance here between the pulley of this power steering pump and the radiator hose, which is obviously a big issue in fitting these engines to these cars. So that's hopefully going to make it a lot better. Now, another benefit is that this lower hose is over here on this side, and really it needs to be on the other side of the car. So on this radiator, it's down here, which is more suitable. One issue is that I had hoped that these lower supports would be in the same position or the same distance apart as this, but they're not. So I'm going to have to drill some more holes here and try and get this radiator to locate in at the bottom. And then I'm going to have to try and see what I can do at the top, because this obviously fits a different way. Well, as you can see, I was able to cut this slam panel away and make room for this pipe to go through. I've also flared the end of it slightly so it looks a little bit more OEM. I have a lot more clearance between this pipe and the power steering pulley here. Okay, so I'll be able to lift the front of this engine, which is, in my opinion, necessary because at the minute the back of the gearbox is pointing upwards and the prop shaft run towards it would also be pointing upwards, and I needed to level the two of them out to have them run in line. So I either have to lower the back of the gearbox or lift the front of the engine, and it's already quite low back there, so lifting the front of the engine is going to help me out a lot, even if it's just 5 or 10 mil. So that's pretty good. Now what you would have seen in this last clip for the video, instead of modifying the radiator support and re-drilling it, what I did is I took the plastic inserts off the radiator and spread them apart and re-crimped them. And so that saved me modifying that lower radiator support, although I did drop it down enough so that I had enough height. So I've went ahead and I put the bumper on here, and just really so you can see what I'm dealing with now, it's tied on here and there's some blocks of wood holding it out, and that's because whenever I bought it, it was very twisted out of shape, and listen, it was very cheap for one of these, so this is what you're going to have to do. They're also very hard to find, so you have to take what you can get. But you can see that there isn't an awful lot of room for an intercooler. In fact, there really isn't any room. Now, what I could probably do is cut this bumper away, but because they're so hard to get, I do not want to do this. So what I'm going to do is fit one of these, which is a charge cooler. And there's really only one place that's going to go. So what I need to do is take this radiator out, take the bumper off, and we'll have a look at that. Well, I imagine you've probably seen one of these before. So this is a charge cooler, and you can have one of these instead of an intercooler. So while an intercooler would sit on the front of the car, and it has cold air blasting through it, and you use that to cool the charge air that passes through it, this you cycle water through it, and you would have a smaller radiator elsewhere to cool that water. So while it would have water going through it this way, the charge air goes through it this way, and that's what cools down the charger. So basically I need to find somewhere to put this, and I think probably the only space that I have for it is in here, underneath the inlet. Okay, it's quite hard to see, but this is the old pipework for the intercooler, and it's going to have to go. This is the EGR valve, this is going to have to go, and this bracket for the old air conditioning pump is going to have to go, and hopefully by the time I get all of those out of there, this charge cooler is going to fit in that space. Well, this is starting to look quite promising. Now, it isn't the way I had intended to fit it. I thought I was going to go in and lay back at an angle, and I was going to put a 45-degree bend on it here, but and we'll obviously cut this down, but it wasn't going to work that way. So luckily at the time I actually also ordered a straight piece, and I think it's going to work this way. Okay, so it's going to sit like this, and I need to make now something to go between the inlet and the charge cooler. You can buy an EGR delete kit, which basically replaces this, and it's got a square flange on it and a straight piece of pipe, but it's far too long. So what I think I'm going to try and do here is cut this down and try and make something from this. Now, it's probably not going to do me long term, but temporarily it's going to get the thing sitting in place, and then I'll be able to make something more permanent. Well, after about 15 minutes, this is what I'm left with. Now, it's just a pity it has this little cutout where the EGR valve went, although I think later on I'm probably going to cut this back a little bit further and do away with it. But for now, I'm going to leave it the length that it is. So I have been thinking about this, and this is obviously going to be bolted tightly up to the inlet manifold, and this can't move. And the charge cooler is going to be bolted onto the side of the engine, and it won't be able to move. So I think once this is in place, like so, there really isn't any chance that that pipe could blow out, because neither of these two things can move independent of each other. So I think I'm probably going to use this as is, and save myself the money of having something else made for this. And also another consideration is that the old EGR valve had an outlet for, I think this is for a map sensor, so I'm going to have to tap and put a fitting into the inlet manifold, but I'll worry about that at a later stage. Hopefully you can see that, but that's the upper hose in place, and it looks pretty decent, so I think that's going to work just fine. So now I need to think about how I'm going to support the weight of this. Now there's only two fixings in this, one on this side and one on the other side. The one on the other side I can't get at until the engine's back out again, and I'll make a bracket that goes between it and the engine mount. But for this side I'm going to put this bracket here in place, and I've made this out of 4mm, and it's got a bit of a twist in it, so it's quite heavy. I'm going to bolt that on through there, and then I'm going to try and weld it onto this power steering bracket. Okay, and then once I've got that tacked in place, I'll pull the power steering off, weld it fully, and bolt it back on. Hopefully that will be enough. If it's not, I might have to consider maybe making something that's going to cradle the bottom of it here. There is mounting points here that it could come off the engine, but I'm going to try mounting it with just these 2 fixings, and hopefully that's going to be enough. Now that that's mounted in place, it's certainly sturdy enough so that once the engine comes out again, I'll be able to make a bracket for the back of it, and I'm pretty happy with how this is sitting. So one thing I have to worry about is that I have an awful lot of pipework to go in around this side of the engine bay, so I want to make sure I've got enough room later on, and so I'm trying to plan ahead. So one of the things that I need to run through here is a cooler for the gearbox, okay? And one of the things that it said on the instructions that came with the fitting kit for the gearbox was that you could use a 16-row oil cooler, so that's what I've got here. And I was planning to mount it on the front of the car here, just behind the radiator grille. And the only issue with this here is that I'm really running out of space for a radiator for this charge cooler. And another issue here is that this would probably keep the gearbox too cool. I think these gearboxes like to run at about 80 or 90 degrees Celsius, which is roughly the same as the water temperature of the engine. And they use a different type of cooler, so this would probably cool it too much. You can put a thermostat in line so that it would stop the cooler working until it got up to 80 degrees, but since all my journeys are very short, and normally about 5 miles or less, the gearbox would probably never get up to temperature. So the other option that it came on the instructions was to use a cooler from an 8 HP gearbox, okay, and this one is off a Jaguar. Now I'll probably buy a new one, but the reason I've got this out of the scrapyard is because it has came with these fittings. So I want to try and mount this into the front of this car here somewhere, and I was trying to fit it, or thinking about fitting it in this area here, but what I think I might do is try and mount it flat in here, okay. So I think what I'm going to do is make a flat plate that comes back, okay, a couple of holes in it, and set it on top, and we'll look at it and see if there's going to be enough room to get all the pipes through. But listen, we're going to have to try something here, and then if it doesn't work, try something else. I just used a bit of 3mm plate there, and I welded a bit of 6mm offcut onto the end of it and drilled and tapped it, and I made a little tab to locate the back of it. So that's it, pretty much ready to go and get bolted in. I did actually make it previous time and drilled some holes in it to try and make it look better, but it did not look better. So I'll get this bolted in and see what it's like. I think that looks pretty sensible in there, and it's in roughly the same position as it was on the Jaguar, so I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. Now, if you didn't know, the way these work is they're a heat exchanger, and the coolant from the engine is going to pass through one of these lines and out the other one, and then the oil from the gearbox is going to pass through one of these and out through the other one of this, and basically it's going to bring the temperature of the gearbox oil up quicker and then maintain it there, and that's going to make the gearbox more efficient and work better. So I think this is a better solution. The only issue is going to be that I somehow need to get between this line here, okay, and the one that's going to go in the gearbox, which is, I've got one of these fittings, which is an AN10 line, okay. So I think what I'm going to be able to do, hopefully, is get somebody to cut this and crimp a fitting in here, and hopefully I should be able to join the two together. Either that, or else I'm going to do away with this all together and get somebody to weld an AN10 fitting onto the end of this cooler, which would also work, but either way I will not be stuck. So my only issue is going to be trying to get all of the pipework snaked through here to the back of the engine, and hopefully I'm going to be able to run the boost pipe in 2" the whole way to here and then step it up. So this should hopefully be a wee bit more efficient for space. Well, I can't put it off any longer. I'm going to have to look at this wiring. So I've laid this out in the shape of the engine here. So this is the engine, this is the turbo, this is the glow plug relay, the map sensor, throttle position sensor, and then in the glove box I'm going to have an ECU, gearbox ECU, and a fuse box. Right, so because this car is going to have a turbo which is electronically actuated, I need a series of wires for it. So it's going to have to come up here across the bulkhead. Okay, so this is this wire here. This is out the back of the engine, so this is this wire here, and this is basically all the controls for the engine. It would be nice to keep this plug on it, but because it's not waterproof, I'm going to have to do away with it. But I have got a waterproof, I think it's either 12-pin or 20-pin plug to replace this with, and that's going to mean that if I have to remove the engine, it's basically a case of just unplugging this and unplugging the wire here, a couple here, and it's basically going to come straight out. So I need to run a wire down here for the throttle position, or for the map sensor and the glow plug. There's only a couple of wires for those. And then the throttle position sensor, I'm going to try and mount it in here, okay? But I need one with a longer cable. I'm going to try and get one of those this afternoon. So that's what it's going to look like in here. I have got a wiring loom from a BMW, and hopefully I'm going to be able to salvage enough wires in the correct colour, or certainly make it so it's easy enough to trace the wires once I've put them all in here. I'll make myself a wiring diagram once it's done, so check it later. And in here we've got the engine ECU, gearbox ECU, and a fuse box, which I'm going to use to control these. So I think what I'm probably going to have to start with is I'm going to have to make a base for these. I'll make a wooden base and I'll put a bit of acoustic carpet on it, get these all mounted, and then from there we'll start routing wires. Well, for all the time that I spent on that, it looks pretty good. And I must say that this sound system cloth that they use to carpet these things is pretty forgiving, so that has certainly helped. So that's going to go in there just like so, and that's where they're going to live. So there is room for the fuse box here, but what I didn't account for was that the wires need to come out from underneath it, and there's not room for those, so it's going to have to go somewhere else. But basically those two are going to live in there. So we'll have a look at what else I've been up to here. Basically making a mess, but I think I'm at the stage here where I can start to tidy up. I don't think I need this loom anymore, and I've been looking at a lot of these wiring diagrams here. This is the instruction manual for the ECU, and I must say it's very good, very informative, but you do need to read it all, because there are some things in it that could catch you out, because some of these terminals actually have more than one wire going to them, which wouldn't be apparent just by looking at this, but once you go through it all, it becomes clear. But this here that I found on Facebook somebody had made has helped out with that as well. So whoever made that, thanks very much. And this is the wiring so far. So I've basically mounted everything that I need to run the engine. This is the glow plug relay box. I've added this wire in here to go to the battery. I've lengthened the wires to it. I need to wire this in here, but I'm going to need to get a wee waterproof connector, and that's so that I can have a glow plug light. This is the map sensor, okay, and it's going to have a fitting that goes into the inlet manifold here. I've lengthened all the wires to it. This is the main loom that goes to the engine. This is for all the sensors, and I've added this waterproof connector here just to make sure I can disconnect it easily when I want to remove the engine. This here is the connector. Let's see. This here is the connector for the injector pump. It's very odd looking, but that's the way it is. And it came with this nice bracket on it from the W210, and it just slotted straight in there, so I didn't have to do any work to fit that whatsoever. All I've done is lengthen the wires for it. This is the throttle position sensor of, I think it's a CLK Merc, probably year 2000 or 1999, something like that there, I think is what's off, but I think this is pretty much a standard part. And I made this bracket to mount it. Now the good thing about this here is that this throttle pedal, or this throttle cable that came from the CLK, joins straight into the throttle pedal of this car. So that saved me a lot of work there. I've added this electrical connector here, junction box, and this red power wire is what would connect to the battery in here, but I'm going to put the battery in the boot. So I'm going to join the battery to the boot to this wire, and I'll put a big massive fuse in here to keep everything safe, and then I'll bring all my power wires off this point here, and it's also got a nice cover to keep everything safe. The fuse box is going to live in here because that's about the only space I've got for it. And you've probably noticed there's a big hole that I've cut here, and this is because it was rusty, but I'll get that sorted out probably before the next clip. I've drilled a hole through here, and I've got a grommet. It's very hard to find a grommet like this in a motor factory, so I went to the scrapyard and got one. I think out of a Kia Ceed or something like that there, but I'm going to route all the wires through that. You probably haven't heard me talk about the gearbox wiring, and that's because I bought it pre-made, and this came from the company that sold the gearbox adapter, and I think they make this up themselves, Jota 5 Sport, and basically I have enough on my plate here, and by the time I would have made this up, it probably would have cost me a lot of time. So I decided just to buy it. Now this only has, I think it's power wire and earth wire. This is an ignition feed, and there's a couple of other wires to join to the ECU, but this green wire needs a delay relay on it for 1 minute. So basically it keeps this live for a minute after you turn the car off. And this is the relay to do the job, but this was like 70 quid. So that's us basically ready to connect all this together. In case you're wondering how I was going to get all those wires through that grommet, this is quite a good wee trick. So you just take a wheel spacer and a load of cable ties and use that to stretch the hole open, and then stick your wires through. Back outside, and I have the engine back out of the car. The reason being is I need the space to be able to push the car back to get the engine out. So the reason I have this engine out is I need to fit the starter in. It goes in here, but because the BMW gearbox has it started in a different position, there's no cutout here for the end of the starter to go through. Okay, so the instruction says to cut a piece out of this. So apparently you're meant to use a 60mm hole saw, but I do not have a 60mm hole saw. I have, I think this is 64. I have a very badly worn 51. So what I'm going to do is use the 51, and if it's not big enough, I'll grind a little bit extra away, and it should be a nice tight fit. I also need to fit my adapter here for the coolant, or for the oil cooler lines for the gearbox, and basically that'll one bolt there, and this will bolt in its place, and that'll allow me to fit these AN10 lines. I think that 51mm hole saw was big enough, and I just filed it down here and here, and that was enough to get it in. So what I'm going to do now is, I think you probably leave this, but I'm going to cover it with a bit of this sound data material just to try and seal it off from water. Not that it really should matter, but I did replace 3 starters on that Escort because water was getting into it, so I don't want that happening again. But I think I'm pretty much ready to put this engine in for the final time. I've got this adapter on here, and I've taped up the lines so I don't get any swarf into them, and I've widened the tunnel a bit more in this area here. Now I need to fix this and weld this up, but I have made a bit more space in this area. So, ready to put it in. Well, hopefully that's the engine in for the final time before it starts. And I've got this section all welded up in here, and I've just brushed a coat of epoxy primer on it. It'll obviously need finished off later on, but I'm ready to put the wiring in. I have got the transmission cooler lines connected up, and what I did here is I took these original Jaguar hoses over to a hydraulic company and got them to cut the ends off, and they've crimped on a JIC10 fitting, and then that screws into an AN10 fitting, which I was able to buy. And that's just one of these where you take a bit of this pipe, slide one of these bows on the end, and then screw this in, and that's the pipe pretty much made. So this is the wiring it has turned out. So this is the section that I have made here up to this ECU, and this is the bit that is a bit more professional. It's made by Jura 5 Sport. So it doesn't actually look too bad. This is all the connections that go on the engine. I've added a fuse box in, something that's going to connect up to the main power. This is my waterproof connector. I've added a relay in for an additional water pump that these cars have, or well, the engines have. Various connectors. I've got a few spare wires that these are for sensors in the engine that aren't used, but I've left them in because I might need a wire later for something else. And this bit here just plugs in. Here's the gear shifter, and this connects up to the gearbox. So it pretty much means that it all disconnects from the engine, from the gearbox, and actually disconnects from the car. Well, I'm getting down to some of the final issues with packaging on the front of this car. So if you look at the front bumper in place, you can see that there's no vent on either side of it. That's just the way they're made, and I don't want to cut the bumper in any way, so I can only use the air that goes to the middle of the car and in through here to cool all the systems. Okay, so as you've seen, I got the transmission cooler mounted. I've also got this power steering cooler mounted. All I really did here was take the bracket that was above here, flip it around, put it down here, and bend this wee tab, and that's giving me a bit more clearance. Things that still need to mount are the oil cooler and a radiator to cool the water that goes to the charge cooler. And also I'm missing now the bracket that went here to support the slam panel. So the plan here is to fit an oil cooler like so for the engine, and because I haven't got a lot of space to deal with here, and I really like the idea of it being symmetrical, I've got this 30 row oil cooler. I'm going to use this as the radiator for the charge cooler. Okay, so this one's going to have oil in it from the engine, and this one's going to have water in it that's going to cool the charge cooler. So I'm going to mount them like so, and the good thing about this is that once I mount it down here and then mount it up here, this is going to support the slam panel, so that's going to replace that bracket that's missing. So I need to make up some wee brackets for the bottom, and I'm going to make them like this with a little cutout and put them in there like that, weld them onto this bar, and that'll deal with the bottom, and then I'll have to work out what to do with the top once I get that far. Well, I'm really quite pleased with how that turned out, but it certainly wasn't as easy as it looked on camera there. What I had done here is I'd left a gap in the middle of these, and what I'd planned to do was to land the safety catch in the middle, and it goes on here, okay? But what I hadn't realised was that the mechanism was a little bit wider than I thought. And so what I ended up having to do was cut this bracket off here and this bracket off here and spread them further apart. And of course, I already had them fully seam welded at that stage. Once I'd done that, I then realised that the bracket that I'd made to go in here up to here would not work either. It was fouling as well, and I had 3 attempts at doing that, and it wouldn't work. So I ended up with just a sleeve in here and a bracket up off the side, and basically that took all day to do, but I am happy with it, and I think that's all that matters really. So I would say that this charge cooler, or this radiator for this charge cooler, is not as big as what they normally would have, but what I plan to do is to run a 1 gallon water tank in the boot, and so that should give me enough capacity, because it takes the water a while to heat up, and I would say by the time it's got to any significant temperature, you probably wouldn't be going fast anymore. If it's not going to be enough, I've got another oil cooler here. I'm going to use it behind the differential, so I definitely think I'm going to be covered in that respect. I've got some of the water pipes sorted out here. This is basically the standard om606 pipe. I've put one of these fittings off, I think it's a Skoda Fabia I got that off, but I will get a new one later on. I've got a BMW Mini fitting down here, and this is the original pipe off the om606 and the original header tank. I do need to do the pipes that go to the heater still. I've made a down pipe here, very rough down pipe, just basically to try and direct the exhaust fumes away from the steering box, but this was all going to be changed later, different turbo, different manifold, so this is just temporary, trying to get it running. I've got all the ECU in here. Now there is an awful lot of excess wiring here that comes with the petrol engine that would have been in here, but I'll have to trim this down, but I want to keep it all here at the minute so that I can see if there's anything I need, and then once I know what I don't need, I'll cut that away. And I've bypassed the oil cooler here. I've just got some of these fittings here that you can buy off eBay. These are for these om606 engines, and I've made this AN10 lineup to do that. And basically I've done that so that if I need to, I can remove the front end of it here and not end up with oil all over the place, and I won't be driving it hard enough to really get into this. So I think basically I am at the stage where if I put these 2 lines into some diesel and going back computer somewhere, I should hopefully be able to have an attempt at trying to get this to start. Well, the first thing I'm going to try here is to see if I can get the crank. So I did try this the other day and it didn't work because I figured out that the neutral safety switch was in action. So I had to bypass that, and since I've done that I haven't tried it, and hopefully now it is going to crank. If it does, I'm going to turn it over for a while and try and see if I can pick up some diesel, and then I'm going to put some power to the ECU. And I have got a laptop here that I got off Facebook Marketplace, so hopefully that is going to do the trick, but we've a long way to go here. Right, it's not cranking. So, oh, I forgot to put the battery on. Right, I'll put the battery on and try it again. Well, at least we'll have some lights on the dash this time, so we'll give this a go. Hopefully it will crank this time. seems to have that hunt back again where it's the revs is rising and dropping whenever it's cranking, but we'll give us another few goes here and then we'll put some power into the ECU and we'll see how we get on. Well, I've been messing about at this for a few hours and I think I'm finally getting somewhere. So there's a series of criteria that needs to be met before this is going to start, and you need to go into this configurator and get them set up. And the problem I had at the start was I didn't actually have a map put into the ECU, so that was the initial problem. And then when I tried to do that, the firmware needed to be updated, not to a more newer version, and then I was meant to update the software that went into it, but that wouldn't update, so I found a different version of the software, got it put into it, and then had to go and select a few things here to get this all to work. My throttle position sensor wasn't working right, so I had to run a calibration on it, and then I had to work out where to turn on the glow plug relays, which wasn't actually that apparent. It was in this input output and not in glow heating control. So it's obviously whoever's made this is very intelligent and they know exactly what they're doing, but it isn't quite just as apparent to somebody like me who doesn't know what they're doing. But what I will say is that there is a good Facebook group, and if you go on and ask a question, somebody's going to come back to you and let you know. And even the guy who's made all this, he's on there and he'll tell you how to do it. So I think I'm pretty much ready to try and start it here, and I haven't tried to start it yet, but I do know that the glow plug relay is working because I turned the key and I felt it click. So I'll give it a go. I'll leave it a couple of seconds here. Let this glow plug work, and then we'll give it a crank and see what happens. It's got to be long enough, I think. Oh, battery's flat. Hopefully this battery's charged enough now, so I'm not really worried about any of these gauges since they're not wired up, and hopefully over here we'll see some engine speed and things like that there. So I'm really only trying to see if I can get this to start and if the accelerator pedal will work, but we'll see what happens here. So let this connect up. Hopefully that's... Doesn't seem to be doing anything yet. I have this Range Rover right here running and the battery connected up to it, so hopefully that's going to give us enough power here. So I'll hit it again here and we'll see what happens. I don't like the way this voltage is dropping way down into the red here. I'm really not having any joy at all here, so I think I'm probably not getting any diesel up here. So I've cracked one of these lines here and I'm going to try and see if I can turn it over and see if that's going to get any diesel up. Hopefully I can see it just through here. Not seeing anything yet anyway. Still can't get it to run. So it's not getting any diesel up to the injectors here. And I did fill the fuel filter and I cranked it a bit more, but it just doesn't seem to be getting any diesel there. Whether I haven't cranked it enough or there's something wrong with the wiring to the injector pump, or there's something wrong with the way it's set up, but it doesn't seem to be getting any diesel. So I've really got only one option here, and I didn't want to have to resort to it, but we'll have to give a bit of this a go. Right, what do you reckon this time? Give it a bit of a heat. This key's sticky as well now. It's not my day. Oh, definitely have something happening. Well, it's definitely started anyway. We are getting diesel now. See it spitting out of here. There you go. Running. Don't know who's more surprised, me or you. But yeah, let's see if the throttle working. It is. I don't really want to run this very long because I've no water in the cooling system, and also I need to check that the gearbox oil level is right. I did check it the other day and I did put some oil in the cooler for it, and I don't think it was ever drained, so I think there should be enough in it, but I would really just like to check. And I think there's some noise coming out of it, probably air going around the system there, so I'm just going to give it a quick start again here and see what it sounds like, because the Range Rover was running the last time whenever I got it going, and I want to see what it starts like on its own accord here, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, it seems not too bad. It is quite knocky, but I think that's because there's still air in the lines here, and hopefully that'll sort of come out of it. But there would be a knocky engine anyway as far as more, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I do think that the throttle is a little bit more responsive than it was in the W210. So far I'd be pretty happy with that. So yeah, pleased. Now I have a lot of parts bought for this, and we'll look at those in a minute. But for now, I'm pretty happy with where this is at. I haven't got the gearbox working yet, but I don't think that's going to be a big issue because the wiring was done by Jota 5 Sport, and I'm pretty sure they're going to help me set that up. So what I need to do is to try and get this running, or get this driving. I need to make a prop shaft for it. I'll have somebody make that for me. I need to connect up the water pipes for the heater core, and connect up the power steering pipes, and hopefully once the gearbox is running I should be able to drive it. And what I want to do there is be able to drive it and test the various systems on it, because I know that the rev counter didn't work before, and I'd like to get that fixed first. And also the ABS light was on, and so I need to decide if I'm going to keep the ABS or remove it, and I'd like to know that before I paint the engine bay. So once I get that driving, we'll be able to test all that. So that's what I'm going to work on with. Now I will be working at the Metro in the meantime, so don't be worried about that. But this is the parts that I've bought for it, okay? And I've got pretty much everything that I need here. So I've got the Mercedes Cosworth kit. I'm missing a part of the front wing thing over there, but it should be coming today. All of it is kind of ropey. The original stuff here, especially the back spoiler here, you can see it is all flattened out whatever way it's been stored, and somebody has cut a bit out for the exhaust. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything with this, but listen, it's all I could get, so we'll have to try and work with it. I've got the Mercedes Cosworth Evolution wheels. These are actually Mercedes SL wheels, but they're the same thing. The right side tires on them. I've got the fiberglass body kit for the Evolution arches, okay, front splitter, an extra front splitter. I'm not sure where they all came with that. I've got hydraulic rams. I found these on the shelf. I have no idea if they're any good or if I'll be able to use them, but they're there. I've got the bootlet spoiler. It is the proper double wing one for the Evolution. I've got a hydraulic pump that I found. Now I don't really like this chrome tank, but I have a painted one. In fact, I have a couple of these pumps. The only thing I'm missing is a valve block, but I might be able to sort something out around that. And I have a turbocharger off, let me get this right, it's some sort of John Deere tractor. It's I think it's an S356V is what it's called, and it is particularly suited to these engines, but I have to decide if it's going to need any internal mods to run this. So basically that's what I have sitting for it, and if you want to see all that, you can like it and subscribe and comment and all those things. See you later.